Elevating Conversations with host Betty Hines, premiering Wednesday, January the 5th on our TV network.
Hello. My name is Betty Hines, as mentioned, and I am very excited today to have joining me in Elevating Conversations my friend, Miss Phyllis Winchester Newhouse. So I'm going to share just a little bit of background about Phyllis because we do have an hour and we're going to break it off in segments because if we talked about all the amazing things she did, we would be here easily for 24 hours. So we're going to try to segment them on the time that we have available. But just to give you a little bit of background about Phyllis, she is the CEO of Shoulder Up Technology Acquisition Corp. She is founder and CEO of Extreme Solutions. That's when I met her. And founder of Shoulder Up, CEO of Athena Technology Acquisition Corp. A little bit about Phyllis. Being the founder of Shoulder Up, it is now a 501c3. Phyllis is a pioneer in business. And if anyone has met her, they will never forget her because she leaves that sort of impact and impression on you. She is the winner of the first woman to win an Ernst & Young EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award in the technology category, as well as become the first African-American female CEO to take a SPAC. That term might be new to some of you, but you're going to hear a lot more about it. And that is Athena Technology Acquisition Corp. Phyllis is passionate about women-led businesses. Trust me when I say passionate. She is a woman-owned business, and she's very passionate about it. And so what she does, because of her passion, she teaches aspiring women entrepreneurs to recognize and capitalize on their leadership skills and empower others to operate in greatness. And I'm just going to tell just a little bit more about Phyllis because she is a retired military vet. But I mentioned that she's the founder of Shoulder Up Technology, of Shoulder Up. And that was alongside Academy Award-winning actress Viola Davis. Yes, there's another world about Phyllis that she was involved in. So I had to throw that in. And that's a nonprofit dedicated to connecting and supporting women on their entrepreneurial journeys. So that is one of 1,000 things. But in the course of doing that, Phyllis launched what we are now learning is SPAC. So I'm just going to ask Phyllis right now just to give us a little snippet about, other than from birth, but to talk about some of the ventures that she's been involved in, how I met her. I met her through Women Presidents Organization. And from there, she connected with EY Winning Women. She was Entrepreneur of the Year. She launched Shoulder Up. And she's had so many engagements. Also, as a retired military vet, she's still very involved in that as well. Phyllis Newhouse, please tell us, with all the amazing things that have happened to your life, how are all those different connections and engagements, how do they shape you to where you are today and how you push it up to the next level, how you Shoulder Up?
Well, Betty, first of all, I just want to take a moment just to say thank you to you and just all the incredible work that you do. But most importantly, thank you for, being a part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of your journey, because I've traveled with you as you've traveled with me, and you just been an incredible cheerleader. So you're the epitome of what shouldering up is, and so I'm very grateful, very appreciative for you. When I think about my life, if I had to break it down into 3 chapters, I've only had 3 chapters. I'd break them down into, my early chapter, which was my first 22 years of professional me, the professional growing and becoming a great leader. That would be, my 22 years in the military. And then if I had to break the second chapter down, it would be my life as an entrepreneur for 20 years. And if I had to say that next chapter is as I'm writing that chapter now, I'm 2 years into that. And so when I think about the evolution of my journey, Betty, I think about, from foundation, having a great, mother, and, she basically, with 11 children, she didn't set limitations on what we could do, especially her girls. Having a father early on tell you, you're going to be a warrior, you're a leader, you're a warrior, you're a leader, you're a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that over and over again. No, go figure, you join the military and become a leader. And so, and then, in my journey in the military, there was a lot that I had to learn, a lot that I had to be, a lot that I wanted to become. And when you have all of that, you have I can say that, there wasn't a time in the military there weren't challenges happening in the military, but I was able to navigate and use those challenges and take my childhood, my foundation, my
Mhm.
parents, and everything, and also to having great women leaders that had come before me in the military, and there were a lot of great men leaders that really helped me elevate to be a great leader. So when I left the military, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was able, and I say this to any veterans that may be listening, I was able to take everything I had learned 22 years in the military and use that to build the next chapter of my life. There's not, a lot of times when there's a transitioning happening between one phase of your life and another, we forget to bring all those experiences, all those ideas, all of those lessons that we've learned, and all the highs, the lows with us, because that's what's going to propel you for the next chapter.
Mhm.
So after starting a business, Betty, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that it was going to be a successful business because I knew that I had the ability to build a great team. I had done that for 22 years.
Mhm.
I built a great team. So why wouldn't you go build another team to do
Mhm.
something else? And so I did that. And so, Extreme Solutions, a cyber company, as we began to grow the company, we began to branch out into the private sector, government, and so which really opened up doors and opportunities, from the Entrepreneur of the Year to the EY Winning Women, and many things came as a result of really just leading a good business with great people. After I did that, I realized that, gosh, I was sitting home almost
Mm.
a year ago today, almost a year and a half, a year and 1 month ago, I was sitting home and I got a phone call from somebody that says, "Hey, have you thought about doing a SPAC?" And and everybody's going through COVID and everybody's trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to get out of the house and how to move and navigate through the next thing and the next thing. And I was thinking about what can I learn while I'm sitting here waiting on COVID and waiting on this opportunity for the world to go back to normal. I want to go learn something. I want to go be something else. And that's where the SPAC idea came from. Was I knew what a SPAC was. I had talked to SPACs about my own company, which is a special purpose acquisition company. And so when I decided, I said, wow, this could be very interesting. I'm going to learn everything that I can about a SPAC in the next 90 days. Now I gave
Wow.
myself 90 days.
So
I
I
want
want just I want you to elaborate a little bit more, because there's a lot of women businesses and a lot of people in general that during COVID they were like, just like, okay, now what? And so they use the term so often, pivot. So what you did was take the time to rethink something that you were already doing. And that's when you were seeking and searching and you came up with SPAC. So I'm not going to say it just came into your lap, because you're a very studious person. So you were you were on the search.
Well, I would say this. I wasn't thinking, you're right. I wasn't thinking about pivoting because my business didn't need to
Mhm.
pivot. Remember, it's a cyber company.
That's
And
right.
we needed to catch up because we had a scalability issue. We were not remote. Cyber folks were
Yeah.
not all remote. So we were dealing with a lot of challenges with customers because we could not be remote. And but here's what I knew. I knew that I had to. I just did this thing. I said I had to trust the day. One day I woke up and decided to trust everything about that day. Somebody called me and said, "Hey, I've heard that you're thinking about doing a SPAC. I am too. Let's leverage up
Yeah.
together and do it together." Well, I knew that I had a lot to learn about SPACs because I only knew the acronyms.
Yeah.
That was about the end of that. But I said, what if I go and I hire a coach, a mentor, and an advisor, somebody that
Mm.
advised me on the capital market, somebody that can coach me through what the SPAC process is, and somebody who can mentor me who had done a SPAC before.
Mhm.
That's what I needed. I said, I'm going to give myself 90 days to do it. I said, and I tell my son this, write this down. In 90 days, we're going to be ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. My son looked at me and he says, "Mom, are you kidding me? You don't even know what a SPAC is." I said, "I'm going to learn it. In 90 days, we're going to be ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange." He's like, "Okay, Mom, when we went to the New York Stock Exchange, it was 89 days from the day that I told you.
See, success breeds success. What I find amazing in your story is that you have a very extremely successful company. Those of us who know you is that you've been the 50 fastest growing woman-led business for some time. I mean, I don't think you missed a year. So even with that success, you're still striving to find how you can shoulder up and scale even more. So what's in your DNA that you very comfortably, told your son, Emmanuel?
Ezekiel.
You told Ezekiel, like, look, 90 days. And I'm going to tell you, Ezekiel probably said he had no doubt. He was being funny because he's seen you in action. So what is about when some people are successful, they're just going to rest on their laurels. So tell us a little bit about that, and we're going to take a break, but tell us just a little bit about that, and then we'll go into a commercial break.
Well, Betty, I'm going to tell you real quickly. It's about being fearless. I knew that in that moment, if I were going to do this, I had to walk into this without being afraid. I knew that I didn't come out of the industry. I knew I didn't have the background. I knew I didn't have the pedigree for this industry, but I knew that I could do anything with the right team. And I knew that I could build teams, and I knew that I could build teams that had the expertise to execute in a market which I didn't come from, because I knew that my major role was going to be leading a team. Not running the team, but leading the team.
And that's what you do well. And I'm gonna put a pin in that because we're gonna talk about you being fearless. But now we're gonna move to a commercial break, and we'll be back with Miss Phyllis Winchester Newhouse.
Elevating Conversations with host Betty Hines, premiering Wednesday, January the 5th on our TV network.
Hi, I'm back here with my guest, Phyllis Newhouse, and we stopped when we were talking about being fearless. The sensational Phyllis Winchester Newhouse, and I'm going to start calling her the SPAC queen. But when we talk about SPACs, and we've used the term, and you did say what it is, could you tell us a little bit more? What is a SPAC? Because they've been around for a while. Yours is different.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what is a SPAC And I also want to hear about your first SPAC. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a SPAC is a special purpose acquisition company. So if you think of a SPAC is a blank check company, someone gives you a blank check, and they don't know it, have an idea what you're going to buy or what you're going to buy with that blank check. But so if you think of a SPAC, there's three ways to go public. You go public via directly list on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. The second way would be through a traditional IPO. That's where I, as a company, go out, get a banker, get a team, a roadshow team, and I go out and I talk to investors and raise money to go public. And then once I raise the money, I price and list on the New York Stock Exchange. A SPAC is almost identical to an IPO, traditional IPO. However, we do the work for the company. And then once we go out, we raise an IPO, we list on an exchange, then we have 24 months to go buy a company to merge with us. Once we merge and that merger happens, that company becomes the publicly traded company now, and the SPAC goes away and the company becomes a publicly traded. So it's most people would look at this as a reverse merger. I go public first as the SPAC. And then as I go public, I go look for a target company. And then once I look for a target company, I have 24 months to do that, or 18 months, whatever the terms are in the prospectus. And then once I go public, once I bring the company public, then the SPAC goes away and the company becomes publicly traded. So we just finished a D-SPAC, and that's called a D-SPAC. A D-SPAC is when the SPAC and the target company merges together. And that process is called D-SPAC. And then the D-SPAC, the company becomes the new publicly traded company versus the SPAC. And we just completed our first SPAC, fully transactional SPAC that went public, and that was Halogen on December the 30th. So Halogen is now trading on the New York Stock Exchange under the Halogen ticker, and our SPAC is totally D-SPAC.
And we just can't just go by that moment, because we saw you on TV. I mean, you were there, with people who have been supportive, who are part of your organization. I was smiling because I could say, I know her. But walk us through, what did that feel like? Walk us through those emotions.
Well, so Isabel Freehine and I both, when we decided to move forward, it was the first all-women-led SPAC.
That's important. Say that again.
All women-led SPAC. The first all-women-led SPAC, and the first SPAC with a woman of color as the CEO of the SPAC to take a company public. So there, in the history of all of the exchanges, there had only been 22 women at the time we decided to go public, of women that had taken companies public. We were number 23. And so I was the first woman of color to take a company public on any exchange. So that moment when we went to ring the bell the first time, and I'm going to say this the first time, when we went to ring the bell, I walk out on that stage and I look behind, and I elected to have people on Zoom. My mom, I mentioned to Isabel, I said, look, you got to have your daughter. She's 4. I got to have my mother. She's 90. I said, because what that is symbolic of where we're going and where we have come from. A woman of color to have a daughter being the first Black woman to ring the bell on the New York Stock Exchange of taking a company public. So when I stepped out on that stage, it was a moment that, in history, I knew that we were making history that day. But Betty, this is what I would say to you, what it felt like. I remember watching, turn around, and I see my mom on the back, and she's ringing the bell because all the people that were on Zoom had a bell, and my mother was ringing the bell, and I got so emotional because I thought about something that she said. She said, remember when you step out on that stage that you're not just ringing the bell for yourself, you're ringing the bell for other women who should have rang a bell way before you, and women that will be ringing the bell after you. But it was just like my mother, who keeps all of us very humble. There are no favors out of the election, to let you know. I called her right after the bell ringing ceremony. I was back at the hotel. I was getting ready to do an interview, and I wanted to call. And I said, Mama, tell me what you think. And she said, well, you just, did I tell you your sister did something nice for me? And but what she told me in that moment, she said, anybody can make history. She said, you don't make a difference. I mean, you don't make change until you do it again, and you don't make a difference until you do it over and over. And that is what
Mhm.
propelled me to go back and launch another SPAC.
Mm. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I know most people would think, "Hey, I'm up here, I ring the bell," but with your mother, and I've had the pleasure of meeting your mom, lots of wisdom there. But that's very significant until you make a change, until you do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yes. So that really answers the question. So you said, "Okay, mom, I got to do it again."
Yeah, I got to do it again. And so for me, the second SPAC was about if so most people that know the whole shoulder up movement is about using your economic power and your platform to create change in the lives of other women. And what I realized too, Betty, this was an opportunity when you run a SPAC, your board is a publicly traded company.
Mhm.
So we had all women on the board. This is the first public board that was all women. And then I knew that as we transitioned to Heligen becoming a company, I was able to negotiate a deal to where we were going to have two women of color on that board, and that's Stacey Abrams and myself end up transitioning on the board of the company
Mhm.
with Bill Gross and his team. So again, if you look at it, and what I would hope that most people, especially people of color, would take away from what a SPAC is understanding the economic upside of a SPAC. It is not traditionally a market that women have played in,
Mhm.
and it's not traditionally, certainly a market that people of color have played in. But I believe that as we educate and we understand and get the financial literacy necessary, then these opportunities will come. I could not have walked in a SPAC if I didn't have some level of financial literacy.
Yes.
Although I didn't come off of Wall Street, although I didn't come out of investment banking, I have been a savvy investor. And and I had also done many SPVs where I had allowed other women to co-invest with co-investment opportunities. So that part I was very familiar with, but the IPO process was very different. So I
Mhm.
had to learn a lot really, really quick. I had to be a student of the game in order to play the game. And once you
Say
learn,
that again. Say that
I
again.
had to be a student of the game first in order to play the game. And
Mhm.
once you know how to play the game, you cannot be denied the opportunity to play. And then when the rules change, you get to change the rules as well. So for
Mhm.
me, I was able to sit down with the bankers and say, "Hey, here's how I want to negotiate the terms." I was able to, because I had great negotiation skills. It didn't come because I was
Mm.
on
Is
Wall
that your
Street.
military background?
That was my military background. That was my 22 years I had to
Yes.
pull forward. And this is what I hope a lot of people realize is that stepping into something new does not mean that you are new. It means that
Mm.
you're stepping into something, even though you're bringing years of experience. I was bringing years of experience
Mhm.
with me to the table of an industry that I wasn't very familiar with. And
Mhm.
that had a lot of weight within itself. And what I would tell you, I learned something about myself through this process. I learned that I was fearless. I learned that, oh my God, enjoyed waking up every morning and knowing that there was going to be a different nuance. There's something different that's going to happen today that I don't know anything about. And
Mhm.
I'm going to have to learn. So I was so intrigued and so addictive to the learning process of doing this that I knew that I would do it again because I knew I was hungry for it over and over and over again. But what I got most excited about is women, bringing them on this journey and saying, "You can
Mhm.
learn this. Here's your background. Let me tell you where your best value card is going to be in a SPAC. Let me tell you what you can do in a SPAC." And so I began to build a team very differently this time in Shoulder Up. That's why you see in Shoulder Up this time we have men in Shoulder Up. Why is
Mm.
that? I keep getting the question, why did you bring men after having an all women led SPAC? I would tell you, it really did not make a difference what those investors thought, whether we were men or women, because at the end of the day, it is about the return on investment. So when you look at the network that women have, our network is nowhere near as extensive as men. So I knew, being smart enough, that I needed to bring great men who believed in the mission of helping
Mm.
elevate other women. And if they believed in that mission, they would bring and we would be able to leverage everything they brought to the table, which
Yeah.
which would be a broader network as well.
Well, what we're going to do, we're going to take another break, get some water, And we're going to come back because I want to hear more about how you built your team. And you consciously made a decision to maybe diversify in terms of your team, not just women and men. So I want to hear more about that. And when you were talking that you were negotiating with bankers, there's a lot of individuals that might have a little fear in meeting with the banker. Let's talk about your power and where your power and what you've accomplished gave you the confidence to just go down and sit down at the table.
Okay.
So let's go to commercial break.
Time. It has a different meaning in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It goes backwards, forwards, it stops. St. Croix is rooted in history. So much of it still remains untouched.
I remember running on these streets as a kid. This shop was right down there. It opened the same year I was born. This is where the original Cruzan hook was born. It's the symbol of these islands. And I wanted to have my hands in that very same history. I want to be able to pass it down to my family while still putting a new spin on it.
The U.S. Virgin Islands, we have an amazing culture that developed over time from all over the world.
St. John feels so untouched. Being underwater is like another world. There's no worries, there's no stress. I can just escape. This is my happy place. My passion for scuba diving came at just being fascinated with the water and wanting to be a mermaid. And this is the closest thing I can get to achieving mermaid status. Canadians just love being outdoorsy. We live for adventure, so we love anything hiking, being on the water, diving, snorkeling, and St. John has it all.
It's like some spirit is protecting the island and keeping them raw. The Makujumbi watches over the island. From up there, they keep the evil spirits away.
Get down.
The nightlife in St. Thomas is absolutely amazing. There's always something going on. Everyone comes together to dance and catch a vibe. We're always celebrating. We celebrate freedom, culture, the food, smell, the music. It's always a celebration. The people here are probably the most priceless thing because they keep the culture going. There's so many different influences on these islands. Food from all kind of countries coming together in new dishes. All of us came from somewhere, but all that we call this home. The VI is a new melting pot. This is where the past and the future comes together.
Elevating Conversations with host Betty Hines, premiering Wednesday, January the 5th on our TV network.
I am back, elevating conversations with Miss Phyllis Winchester Newhouse, the SPAC Queen. So, Phyllis, as long as I've known you, and it's been a while, you are not one, as they talk about swimming in the red ocean with the sharks. You create your own ocean. You are always in the blue ocean, and you create opportunities. And just listening to you talk about your first SPAC, tell us about, you did it the first time, rang the bell, and what your mama said, you got to do it again.
Do it again.
So now tell us about how you built your next team, and let's talk about that second SPAC, because you did 2 in 1 year, if I'm correct.
2 and 7 months.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's hear that story.
Yeah. So here's what I learned. So as we were going through the first SPAC, I was documenting all the things that I was learning, everything that was going wrong, everything that was going right. And I was writing a book. Trust me, I hope one day to publish that. So when we started to work on the second SPAC, I knew that I wasn't going to do an all women led SPAC. Not that I didn't enjoy working with all women, but as I was saying, I realized that if you limit yourself, you're only you can't go so broad. You couldn't cast your net far enough. And so what I realized is that, I had so many great guys, Sean Henry, Tom Clea, Rashawn Williams, that had partnered with me along my journey before, and they had the expertise. Why would I not go out and extend that opportunity for them to come in and be a part of something which they understood the mission? So when we built the Athena team, we looked at the skill sets and I called it the value card system. We were looking for certain value cards. Okay, who has the value card, the art of negotiation? Who has this value card? Because if every single person had the same value card sitting at the table, it was a disaster. So I looked at who had an extensive network, who had capital markets, who had been an investor, investment banking, who had ran a company before at size and scale for the company we were trying to acquire. So I needed somebody like a Janice Bryan who had ran a $1 billion company. I needed somebody who had governance and compliance, who was a tax attorney or CPA. So when we looked at everything we needed, we went to market and say, who meets the criteria? And that's how we built a team. So the team was very diverse intentionally, but based off of background, skill sets, and expertise. And
say that again. It wasn't just like your aunt, your uncle.
Absolutely. I believe that if we were to focus on the value card system, we would be diverse deliberately. And so that brought about diversity anyway. So when I look at we have the America's board. There is no more diverse board than what you see in this SPAC. From African-American women to Caucasian women to Latino women to Asian American women to white male, and you name it. And so if you look at our SPAC, we have federal government, retired generals, retired admirals, CEOs. Wow. We have people that have taken companies public. Tom Clea was with Amazon for 19 years, one of the first people to join Amazon. Sean Henry was one of the first principals to join CrowdStrike. So they have public board experience. Some have board experience. So I felt like based off of the expertise of the team, that any company out there would want to partner with this team. And we wanted the phone to ring for us, not us ringing and calling people. And that is exactly what we got the day we went public.
That's outstanding. And it really is the team, because when they're looking at everything, certainly they're seeing your accomplishment. But as you said, you call it your value card system. That's so very important. I want to talk about women today. So many women feel like there's a fear. And you and I have talked about women. They talk about access to capital, access to opportunities and resources and information. You're sharing a lot right now. So for women, if they want to do something different, they might have their company, because you have a very successful company, but you weren't settling on your laurels and what you've already accomplished. What do you say to women out there? Just get going. Where do they start?
I want to say this. I was talking to my good friend Stacey Abrams about maybe 3 months ago, and we were talking about who you're becoming. I asked her this question. I said, what do you do or what you don't do, or when you lose or when you win, does it determine who you were meant to be or who you're becoming? And a lot of times we focus on the very thing that we're doing, and we think that thing has defined who we are, but it has not. It is only a part of the journey. Being in the military for 22 years didn't define me. It only allowed me to become a CEO of a company. Being a CEO of the company has only allowed me to go out and do something that I'd never done before, which is SPACs. And so when I look at who I was meant to be, all these things, Betty, are only part of who I'm becoming. And that legacy, I tell women today, don't wait and let somebody write your legacy. Start living in your legacy today. I believe that because I understand the economics and how economically this is empowering women, it is important for women to understand how this works. It is not okay for you to not know how money works, because when we talk about access to capital, you can't access something you don't know how it works. You have to first understand the fundamentals of investing.
It might sound simple, but how are you going to access if you don't understand how it works?
Yeah. So even if I gave you a bunch of money, what do you do with all that? How do you invest? How do you leverage? Even if I gave you all the financial vehicles that are out there available for women, Betty, I'm going to tell you this. Why I'm so intrigued about SPACs and getting more women to lead SPACs and be involved and get on boards and be because we already have the skill sets. It is how we take something that we already know how to do and use it and apply it somewhere else. How do we apply this even in a space that you may not be familiar with? But I will share this with you. If we could go back to the financial literacy, because I think that is a big piece of learning the game. There is a huge game out there. And and I can tell you this because I talked to 90-something investors in 3 days to get, and it was over 2.4 billion in demand of investors wanting to invest with us. 90-something investors. Not only out of 97 investors, only 2 women were on those calls. Out of 90 investors, not one person of color. And so what did that tell me? I was still able to raise 2.4 billion, even in the demands on a Zoom call, able to do that. And how did we do that?
And on a Zoom call at that.
Right. Never leave my house. And how do we do that? I did that because I was able to put together one heck of a roadshow team. I knew that I needed a Sean Henry on that call. I knew that I needed a Rashawn on that call. All of us brought something different to the table that quenched the appetite of those investors that said, hell yeah, I want in. Yes, I'm betting on this team. And so I think if you're used to building teams and the financial literacy, you're willing to be educated. If you're willing to, if you want to play this big game out here, my biggest lesson from this whole thing, this whole journey, Betty, if you want to play this game, you must be willing to be a student first, because access to capital means nothing if you don't know the game. Raising capital for your business means nothing if you don't understand the game.
Where would you suggest, and I'm speaking solely on women because I'm all about women elevating women. Where do they start? I mean, you talk about financial literacy and access to capital. What do you suggest that they go to get this knowledge? They can follow people like you, but where should they start?
Yeah, that's a great question. So people ask me, how did you learn so much about SPACs in 89 days that you were ringing the bell? A lot of that is that you got to be willing to burn the midnight oil. And I stayed up a lot. I mean, I remember getting on the first banking call, Betty, and I had to Google every damn thing that this banker was saying while I was on the call because I had to write that term down, write it down, write this term down. And I had to go back and go over the terms. I had to call, my mentor, my advisor, my coach and said, okay, tell me about this. Tell me, go a little bit deeper, go a little bit deeper. And here's what happened. The moment that light bulb goes off and you start to get it, then you want to get more of it. Because we got to have that breakthrough.
You're hungry for more.
Yeah, because what happens is we're bringing financial trauma to the table. Most women, we bring financial trauma. We've been told money doesn't grow on trees. We've been told we don't control the checkbook. We're not CFOs. We're not this. We're not that. And believe it or not, I see it every day, Betty. Even as women CEOs, I have asked women, hey, would you like to invest? I don't really do a lot of investment. Let me ask my guy. They always have a guy that they have to go ask. They always have this guy that's saying, oh, I don't know about that. SPAC seems really risky. Oh, I think SPACs are upside down. And so they're listening and they won't go beyond the research. Trust me, that guy only knows 1% more than you do.
And I want to. Your SPAC is a little different because you're bringing in. I mean, it's not. It's much higher level, in my opinion, because you're doing the cyber, you're doing the AI, you're doing some other things as well. Correct?
Yeah. So when you launch a SPAC, you want to launch it in an industry where you have the expertise and you have certainly the credible team and the board. And so, as you can imagine. I have people on the board that are coming out of the Pentagon and the cyber and coming out of Amazon, coming out of CrowdStrike. So we do have the people that have the expertise, years of experience. And so the objective is to find a company that want to merge with a SPAC where they can leverage everything that SPAC is going to bring to the table. We're going to bring deep pocket relationships. We're going to bring many years of experience in how to navigate and grow. Because the objective is that company wants to go into a SPAC so they can merge so that they ultimately can scale their company to be a really big publicly traded company. And that's why you want to make sure. Betty, some people look at SPACs and they look at it as a transaction. The difference between us and most SPACs is that it's more relationship driven. I don't want to, because if you look at this and you say, why would people want to de-SPAC? Why would people want to do a business combination with Phyllis and the Shoulder Up team or Athena? It's because they're going to look at the totality of the team and not just the SPAC. Other SPACs struggle out there because it's a guy in a suitcase. He just wants to SPAC. He doesn't care if he SPACs your mother or your grandmother. We call those folks the SPAC mafia. There's a lot out there.
Well, you know what? I'm seeing that we need to take another break. Everybody, I've enjoyed this dialogue. We're not over yet. We're going to take a break and we're going to wrap it up. We're going to finish about the SPAC mafia, and we're going to talk about what is next. She's already done 2 SPACs. What's next for Phyllis Winchester Newhouse? Break time.
All right.
Elevating Conversations with host Betty Hines, premiering Wednesday, January the 5th on our TV network.
Well, I'm back with Phyllis Newhouse, and she's been elevating my conversations. So, Phyllis, with the few minutes that we have left, I want to go back to talk about the SPAC mafia.
Yeah. Yeah, I want people to Google that. When somebody first said that to me, I started laughing. I was like, "There's no such thing," but I did actually Google it, and I was like, "Oh, is that really real?" But no, and that really is just a term I think a lot of people say when you make sure that you do when you decide whether you're investing in a SPAC, whether you're joining a SPAC, or whether you are thinking of starting a SPAC, is the quality that will separate you from most SPACs. And I think when you look at the quality of teams that we have built versus Athena and the Shoulder Up, and what the future of the brand looks like for Shoulder Up, is that we want to build a quality. We want to be the household name SPACs that people know that when you look at this team, you know that this is a well put together team, is very strategic and is very focused, is very driven, and is very purposeful.
So what's up? I know you're working on more. As your mama said, you got to do more.
You got to make a difference.
Yeah, I know you're working on something right now. What's next for Phyllis?
You know what? When I think about the future, I definitely intend to stay. We're building a brand, the Shoulder Up brand in SPACs. And what I hope for the future is that Betty, I was out on the floor after I rang the bell the second time and rang it with a lot of veterans. But
don't make light of that.
Yeah, but I
rang the bell.
But I was on the floor
7 months.
I was standing on the New York Stock Exchange with my son on the floor, and I looked up at the podium, and he goes, "Mom, what are you looking at?" I said, "I'm looking at the future." He says, "What is that?" Nobody's up there. I said, "I know, but what I see up there isn't me the next time. I see you standing there the next time, and your generation standing." So I'm hoping that part of our financial literacy platform that Rashawn Williams and I rolled out is that we're building the future of and it doesn't take us 200 years to get on the podium. It's taking 200 years to get on the podium. And so we hope that we will start to elevate, especially women and people of color, to get in the game, start learning the game so you can get in and play. Quit sitting on the sideline. Quit waiting for the coach to put you in. He's not going to put you in unless you know that he knows you know the game. And so if you want to play the game, learn it, get in it, do whatever you can. Take tutorials online, start looking and investing one-on-one. That's how I first learned to invest. I went online, took tutorials. I wanted to get the language down. I wanted to understand the lingo. And once I did that, I felt a little bit comfortable. And get out of your comfort zone and thinking, how do I think about investing? What does my portfolio, what should I look like? How much could I invest? Am I qualified investor? And so I think if you start there, for the future for me is to continue to educate, continue to elevate, and continue to promote women and people of color to get in the game. So that's what the future looks like.
And Phyllis, I look at all your accomplishments, and what Maya Angelou would say is that making a living is not the same thing as making a life. And what you're doing with the SPACs is making a life. So what could be some parting words of wisdom that you want to share with other women? How can they make a life?
I would say this. This goes back to everything that I believe, every fiber of my soul, I believe this. It is that everything that you have done on your life journey, bring it forward. That's only a part of who you're becoming. It is not who you were meant to be right now. But if you take that and you say, I'm going to be, I want to invest in SPACs. I want to, go take my company public. I want to be a better investor in 2022, I think, or 2023, 2024. Look at where you are today and say, how do I learn the game that I don't know how to play? How do I play that game over there? Everybody else seems to be playing so well. Even though it looks like a foreign game to you, trust me, even if it's a foreign game, learn it. Because before you know it, most who play the game end up owning the game.
And you are owning the SPACs. Phyllis, I tell you, this has all been such a joy in having a chance to talk with you about SPACs. And I look forward to 2022. I don't know if you had New Year's resolutions or if you made
Well,
them.
let me tell you what my New Year's resolution is.
Yeah.
Is to hang out with you as often as I can.
You got it. You got it. So I appreciate you taking time, and maybe I could talk Phyllis on doing a part 2 for
And
Elevating Conscience.
if that's the way I get to hang out with you,
That's right.
I'm all in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me in the premiere of Elevating Conversations with Betty Hines. I wish you well, wisdom, and light. Thank you, Phyllis Winchester
Betty.
Newhouse.
Thank you, Betty. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elevating Conversations with host Betty Hines, premiering Wednesday, January the 5th